Hello, everyone, and welcome to another emergency podcast episode of Slash Film Daily for October 4th, 2018. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is the host of the Steele Wars Podcast, Steele Saunders.
Hey, Peter. Thanks so much for having us on. I love that you're having an emergency podcast to back up your emergency podcast.
I know. We just did one yesterday with Jason and Brian, and you replied me and was like, "I live down the street. Why aren't you having me on?" So when this happened, this news dropped today. I don't think I've ever had an emergency podcast the day after an emergency, like within 24 hours. This has been a lot of Star Wars news.
You don't know the half of it, buddy, because I had my firstborn son on Saturday. And
I saw photos online.
I've been getting emergency podcasts from Jason Ward via my phone constantly over the past week. He's like, you gotta quit with this son having and come do stuff with us. But wow, it's so exciting. And I do have to say, you do live just down the street from me, so we are really mocking the amazing technology of Skype right now. Like Skype should just come up and just go, "Are you serious? Just walk down there, dude." Like I can't be bothered putting this through. But it's an emergency podcast. I don't even have time to walk down the street.
See, the sad fact is I have my studio in my walk-in closet, so I don't even think we could fit both of us in here. But I guess we could have recorded at your place. You have a studio there, right? You have a whole setup. I think I've seen. Yeah,
I've got a pretty a decent setup, but I had the scoop. It's been a big week for scoops. My scoop of the week was seeing you walk your dog.
Yeah, I saw you tweet that. That was funny. I've been on a diet, and I've been trying to get exercise, and I've been walking to Chipotle because I'm on this weird keto diet, which is low carb. Anyways, people are not listening to this podcast to hear about this. People want to hear about Star Wars. So actually, before we get into today's news, let me get your reaction to yesterday's news, which was that this Star Wars live-action TV series produced by Jon Favreau is going to be called The Mandalorian, and is going to be follow a Mandalorian warrior. It sounds like it's kind of a Western that's going to be after Return of the Jedi, but before Force Awakens. So hearing all that yesterday, what was your reaction?
Jason Ward's done it again. That was my reaction because he told me about it 2 months ago, and it was on the side, I think, October 6th or something like that. But it's thrilling. This is what we as nerds went on about for 20 years about. Imagine if they did this. Imagine if they did that. And seeing this photo now, and also bouncing it off Jason's set photos, it's like that. It sort of looked like, it's like they're at Disneyland. But then you've got this other angle now on StarWars.com with the Mandalorian, strutting down. It looks like Mos Espa to me, or it definitely got some Tatooine vibes. But we have been fooled
a
before.
Desert marketplace of some kind. By the way, I told Jason this, but I'm 100% convinced that this press release that was sent out today, you can see the photo on slashfilm.com, but this press release that was sent out today, that it wouldn't have had a photo accompanied with the press release if Jason wasn't camping out every day right across from set and, pointing his camera, where it shouldn't be pointed.
I think he's pointing it in the right direction just quietly. But this Mando suit is, I don't know, it's very impressive. I was at Lucasfilm, I think it was last month, and I saw the ancient Mandalorian that was in Solo in Dryden Voss's little boudoir. And the thing I like about the Mandalorians, they've had many different suits throughout the thousands of years or whatever, but they nailed it first shot with the helmet. They got the helmet right and just went, we're sticking with the T helmet through thousands of years, and we'll just change the rest of the suit. So I really appreciate them. But it does harken back quite a bit to some of like Joe Johnson's early like pre-production drawings of Boba Fett in the late 70s, and for the holiday special, like that rifle.
It's also like very desaturated, which was his like earlier designs, right? Yeah.
Very, very tonal. I think someone had some comment about rocking the brown or something on my Twitter feed just then, but it's like this is why Star Wars, like why we all love it and why so many different types of people love it, is because they take so many different types of films that are dope and jam them into one film and put it in space. And this just looks like just a sweet Western, but it's some mysterious alien creature that's walking down the 2-bit town. It's so exciting.
I love his like brushed steel helmet and the battle worn like costume and gear he has on there. I guess we really don't know much about this character other than he is the title character of this series. Does that mean he's a hero or is he a bad guy? Because I guess we've had both in terms of Mandalorians in the Star Wars saga so far, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's. And sometimes that's a problem with Star Wars, that like a Greedo, they're all bad. I think they're breaking that mold now, but quite often there's been a lot of.
George Lucas was very black or white, and even the color schemes of the originals. It was like look, it's Darth Vader, he's black.
Yes, and there was a lot of some lighthearted racist slurs in those early creature names. It was just like, let's just call them by the worst possible, like Hammerhead. No one wants to be reminded of their Hammerhead. But I guess the one thing we do know about him is he was one shot just above the knee, it looks like. So let's get some expanded universe, some fanfic about how that dint got there.
Well, I'm sure we'll get a whole comic book series just based on that alone.
And it won't even explain it. It's that's the best thing. He sort of has to be a hero or an anti-hero in some fashion. Like, otherwise it's a bit like, if he's a villain in it, I don't know, it's a bit bro-y for me. Yeah. That we're just going to follow around this, he just kicks ass and takes names and does like who, I don't know. Yeah. But I feel
it's also Disney. I don't think they would go with the villain. I mean, not that they haven't in the past. They did, Maleficent, but I mean, I guess it humanized her. So, but let's talk about the big news that came out today, aside from this photo, which this photo is awesome. So, go to slashfilm.com and check it out. But the big news is the slate of directors that are announced to, helm this season of episodes. And, one of those had already been rumored. I think Jason, it was another one of Jason's things that he said Dave Filoni was going to direct, 2 episodes of this first season, right?
Yes, just when you said that, I just got reminded of how unbearable the next 6 months of my life is going to be with him going on about this. And I don't know if he'd reported it or not, but Taika, how do you say that guy's name?
Taika Waititi. He was on the podcast yesterday and mentioned his name. So he did publicly say it before this announcement. But let's get your reaction to this. Are you a fan of the Clone Wars and Rebels? Like, does the fact that Dave Filoni is going to be making his live action, directorial debut with this series exciting to you?
Not as much as some people, but like, I definitely think he deserves a spot and is, he's obviously got the chops. And, he got schooled under George Lucas and has done some amazing work with those animations and the storytelling. I haven't always clicked with everything that he's done, but do you know what I mean? It's not his job to make everything perfect for me. So I think it's great. And also, like, the influence he's going to be able to have to, keep things like really coherent and chuck in little extra bones of information. Like I was talking about that with someone recently. it doesn't seem like on the Star Wars sets they permanently have the story group there. Like, unlike if you had like if you were doing a police movie and you had like an ex-cop there to consult, it doesn't feel like those guys are there on set.
They're not all the time, but they have been there. Like, they were there for a little bit of Solo, and yeah, but you are right. It doesn't. I honestly think that had to do with J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams kind of set the tone for these new Star Wars movies. And he was so secretive and really not very cooperative in, wanting to do his own thing and going, we heard a little bit about how, the Lucasfilm story group's role in that film of like, they would read the script and be like, you said that I think there's this line in Force Awakens that Han Solo says we searched all over the outer reaches and we couldn't find the Millennium Falcon or something like that. And then I think Pablo had to go to Abrams and be like, well, that's too big of an area to say that you searched all over that. You could say like this. And so they made it more specific in the movie. So I think it was more of like we'll see what you want to do and we'll, tell you what doesn't work. But you're right. This is going to be more like it seems like it would be more hands-on, especially with Filoni involved. I'm with you. Like, the more kiddie stuff in Clone Wars and Rebels is not my thing, and especially when they're not going for the overarching storyline when it has those like side bottle episodes. Certainly not my thing. But have you been at any of these events that they have at Walt Disney Studios where Filoni like shows the finale of a season and he like talks about it after?
No.
Well, he was there for I don't think this past one, but the one before it, and he like gave it an analysis of that whole temple scene, that fight between who was it, Vader and Ahsoka?
Yeah,
and it was just like a film school lesson and like how everything was staged and the choreography, the geography, the hidden meanings of certain shapes and things that he was trying to tell in the story. And I'm sure you've talked to him. He's just like a genius in like the mythology of the Star Wars universe. It seems like, him working with George Lucas all those years kind of like seeped into his like skin in his brain.
Yeah, I guess maybe my biggest sort of thing with him is it seems like he just gets too attached to his characters.
I mean, that's for sure. He's certainly kept on bringing him back, which possibly means could we see Ahsoka or someone appear in live action in this show? Do you think he would go that far?
I don't know. It's a big call, and it might be piling a bit too much on. Like, I think if Ahsoka's going to appear in something, like this show's got so much already. What everyone's crying out for is Sabine.
Yeah.
And,
this being a Mandalorian tale, that would make sense.
Yeah, and I saw online today, Katie Sackhouse, is it Sackhoff?
I think
from Battlestar, and she played Bo-Katan on the Clone Wars, one of the Mandalorians, and she made her feelings known that she would be very keen to get a lift down to the set with Jason Ward and suit up. But
I know Jon Favreau was a huge fan of Battlestar. He based a lot of those, Iron Man flying in the original Iron Man based on like, those space sequences in Battlestar. So maybe there is something there.
Interesting, but she's one of the rare people that could perfectly play the character she's voice acting.
Oh, for sure.
Like Ashley as Ahsoka, to me, like, would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think that would work.
But yeah, she, like, someone posted up a photo of her and she's got, the little sort of like a extended sort of bowl cut, the same as Bo-Katan. I'm not sure if it's her current haircut or not. I'm not sort of, I haven't checked, katiehaircut.net. today. I've got a new child. It's I've got to have priorities, but she does like suit that as well. And I just think she's like kick ass, and so she's someone that can appear in everything that I watch. But
I like her a lot, and I'm surprised she's not in more stuff. But we should keep this on topic of the filmmakers here.
Yeah.
I
had like on Twitter, like I'm deep in the Star Wars podcast world, and a common complaint from podcasters, more astute podcasters, is a bit of diversity in the director's chair. So I was just elated to see people elated for, different, not just like, oh, it's Filoni, but I had other people. I tweeted out the announcement, and some people were like, Bryce Dallas Howard, yes. Dave Filoni, yes. Tahika, yes. Like, so it's like, I'm glad this announcement has, made people's days for so many different reasons. I don't know.
And it's also funny because I remember when Kathleen Kennedy was asked about, hiring female directors and stuff, and she kind of got some flack over that. And then I feel like, what was it, like a few weeks later, they announced that Jon Favreau was doing this live action show. And, again, there was outrage that, a white man was another white man was hired to do Star Wars. Guess
a bit of salt to that wound was that it was announced on International Women's Day.
Oh, and that too. Yes, I forgot about that. But looking at this, it seems like they were well aware of that. I mean, you have two women here. You have two people of color. Dave Filoni, I'm not sure what his background is.
He fills in the diversity for hat wearers.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Taika Waititi. Have you seen any of his films? Like, you seem like a comedy guy, so I would assume that you have seen at least his last two movies, right?
I definitely saw Thor. What else has he made?
I first discovered him with this movie called Eagle vs. Shark, which was like this very quirky Wes Anderson-esque like New Zealand film. And I'm happy because I discovered him. I'm gonna brag. This is gonna be my Jason Ward moment of the podcast. 15 years ago I saw that film or whatever it was, and my quote is on the cover of that Blu-ray and DVD. So I feel like I discovered Taika Waititi way before everybody else. But he made this mockumentary that was this vampire mockumentary called What We Do in the Shadows. Did you see that? No, it's very good. And then he did this dramedy that appeared that premiered at Sundance and was nominated for a bunch of awards called Hunt for the Wilder People.
Well, one thing that I've seen a lot of was it looks like he's directed and appeared in a fair few Flight of the Conchords episodes.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, but like Thor was so fun. That was just a fun movie to watch. So it's that one's good. My favorite of all the people announced, and I have no idea what this guy's done except for this one credit, but I'm gonna pretend I don't know the credit because it's Rick
Fumiyama.
Say it again.
Fumiyama.
Yeah. All right. Rick Fumiyama, and I just like in brackets his credit is dope. But when I read it, it just sounds like whoever was writing the press release was just really stoked. It was like, yeah, dope. We've got Rick, because that's I talk like a 17-year-old skate kid, so that really relates to me.
Did you see his film Dope? It sounds like you have not.
Oh no, I have. It's
okay.
I because I watch lots of Star Wars and I try to watch anything set in LA so I can assimilate with your culture.
No, I and that's another film I saw at Sundance and loved. And who was it? Kiersey Clemons was in that, and she's a rising star. She's supposed to be in the Flash film. Yeah. Anyways, getting off track here.
I do have to say I do have a limit of 2 Sundance references per podcast. So
okay, so I've run out.
Any more and you'll be dead air. Okay?
Yeah. No, it's okay. No, he's very good, and you like Dope. You enjoyed it?
Oh, Dope was dope.
Yeah. No, I'm excited about him. I did want to ask you something about Taika Waititi, because his films are so quirky and so uniquely him. Like Thor Ragnarok doesn't feel like any other Marvel movie, even though a lot of people compare it to Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel like it has this comedy and tone and rhythm to it that is not unlike any of the other of the MCU films. So I'm wondering, I know a lot of people had a problem, and I'm not talking about the, fan babies, or the Russian trolls. I'm talking about the actual fans. A lot of people had a problem with the humor that Rian Johnson brought to The Last Jedi, that it was kind of, outside of, it felt kind of like it was different than, the tone and humor that had been previously in the saga films.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't up to the level of like C-3PO saying it's a drag or I'm beside myself. It did not hit those heady heights.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll pick up your game.
Well, no. It's not about the intelligence, I think, because I actually have a little bit of a problem with this. I think it just felt a little bit too modern in sensibility of the humor. Like the whole, I think, for instance, the biggest one example is, when Hux is being trolled by Poe in the beginning of the movie. Like, it felt very like a modern movie.
Yeah, I actually liked that scene more when I didn't know he was saying hugs. When I just thought it was just a straight up Bart Simpson calling Moe's Tavern prank call, I was really up for it. And the hugs thing, I was sort of just like, yeah, maybe that's a bit much. But that's, that's comedy. It's not like, where do you gauge it? Where do you click in? And I think it's made worse if people didn't enjoy, the main story with, say Luke Skywalker, then the jokes around it become more annoying and get inflamed. But I sort of think Force Awakens is the best Star Wars humor film.
I agree there. But so you wouldn't have a problem with Taika Waititi's kind of very quirky humor being inserted into this, galaxy we know already.
Sure, because Thor, it kind of like, it was sort of like so outrageous and ridiculous, and it sort of seemed like the characters knew that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there was some sort of like, this is a ridiculous situation. But the other thing is with that is that perhaps that's how people act in comic books as well. Like, it's sort of that comic book sensibility of, and it's same in Star Wars. You're in a shootout and, you shoot, and in between shots you like make quips to the other person shooting. Do you know what I mean? That's like, that's the universe that you're in, that it's so dangerous that you like, I don't know if it's your coping mechanism or you're just so used to it, but that's established in the first film that under duress you still make lots of quips and maybe put down the people that you're trying to escape with. There's a lot of negging in that first movie.
For sure. Okay.
I do find the whole thing weird anyway, that it's like a Star Wars, extended movie, but it's directed by so many different people like that. Like, I know that's a normal television process, but because it's like Star Wars, I'm like, but then you've got Favreau overseeing it all. I can't believe that the dude that wrote Swingers is making a Mandalorian TV series. It's so weird.
No, and he's a huge Star Wars fan. I said this to Jason on the podcast yesterday, but I was on the set of The Jungle Book, which was filmed in a warehouse in downtown Los Angeles. And it was this warehouse that was surrounded by blue tarps, blue screens. And I asked him, I was like, why are you using blue screens and not green screens? And he said it was because he grew up watching all the, behind the scenes making of the original Star Wars movies. And he always wanted to work on a set that had blue screens. So that was his reason. It was no technological reason to it at all. But anyways, we should talk about the two women here, which I think, my colleague Jermaine Lucier said on Twitter that I think he was joking. He said, like, who had the bet for Deborah Chow and Bryce Dallas Howard as the first female directors of Star Wars content. Like, who had their money on those two? Like, I was not expecting either of these names. If I had put a list together of 50 women who should direct Star Wars, these people wouldn't be on it. Not that they...
The list would be the 50 top women that should be complained about by bitter Star Wars fans.
Or that, yeah, that. But, and that's not to discredit either of these people, but I think they're just, Bryce Dallas Howard is primarily thought of as an actress. She has directed some short films, and Deborah has primarily done TV. I guess this is TV, so I'm not sure why I'm thinking of it as a film.
Star Wars.
What do you think of Bryce Dallas Howard?
I had no idea she even directed. Do you know what I mean? I thought the only thing she directed was like disastrous theme parks in fictional circumstances. So I was kind of confused. I was like, oh, have they leaked an actor by mistake? But no, she's in there. I guess it's everyone in the family gets to direct a Star Wars bit of content this year, which is very exciting.
She's kind of in the family, though, because George Lucas was so, close with Ron Howard, and you say Ron Howard did Solo, Star Wars Story. It almost makes sense. It's kind of like in her blood, in a way, I think. And yeah, she directed, I think, some TV movie called Call Me Crazy, and did like 4 short films, none of which I have seen, but I'm gonna change that tomorrow. I'm gonna try to seek out these short films because I want to see what her directing talent is like. But we should talk about Deborah Chow. Do you have any experience with her? She's done a lot of TV. She broke onto the scene with this 2010 feature debut, The High Cost of Living. It was won the best Canadian first feature film at the Toronto International Film Festival. I have not seen that. Have you?
No, I have not. I try to boycott everything from Canada except maple syrup. So okay, interesting. I've got her filmography up here, and she directed an episode of Better Call Saul.
Yeah, she directed an episode, I think it was on 2 weeks ago. It was the one, if I'm not
it's from
incorrect.
This year. Okay.
Yeah, if I'm not incorrect, I could be wrong here, but I think it's the episode. Are you watching this year's?
Yes.
But it started out with a split screen of Saul on one side and what's her name on the other? I know the actress's name.
Oh, and Kim. And it had
Kim on the other. And showing kind of how they were, going in different directions with their lives. It was a well-directed episode, and I even listened to the Better Call Saul podcast because I just listen to podcasts while I work and stuff. And she, this filmmaker, Deborah Chow, was a very well-spoken, very, you could tell she knows her craft.
That episode was epic.
Yeah, I hope I'm not getting that wrong. I think that it was that episode.
No. I've got the photos up now, and it was Jimmy runs into a problem as he expands his business that only Kim can solve. Gus gets involved in Hector's medical care. Mike has to deal with a setback. That was it was the one where Saul's sort of bodyguard hit the cop on the side of the head.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was a good episode. I don't know if that means it was like well directed, but I'm happy to give her the credit. That the opening bit with the split screen was kind of tragic. So I guess that's doing the job because it made me feel sad.
It was actually some complex storytelling for a montage. It was doing a lot of things.
It sort of made me worried, about I've got to make sure that doesn't happen with me and my wife. It was a chilling a chilling opening montage. I just want to watch a show about a sketchy lawyer, but I don't want to have to think about my life.
Yeah. And she's directed episodes of Iron Fist, Fear the Walking Dead, Jessica Jones, Lost in Space, Snowfall, and The Man in High Castle. So she has a long resume of TV, which I think. Robot? Oh, Mr. Robot too? I didn't even see that on the list.
Oh, I'm a bit disappointed. She directed a short in 2004 called The Hill, but I thought it was The Hills, like with Lauren Conrad.
Isn't that coming back? I don't know. Okay, anyways, we're getting distracted. Okay, so I think we've talked about all of the directors we know of here. I think Jason says it's 8 episodes. New York Times said 10 episodes. So we only have 5 directors here. If they're each directing 2 episodes each, that might make sense, right? Like, you'd think they would announce all the names of the directors of the first season. Who is the director that isn't here that, that you would love to see direct an episode of Star Wars television?
George Lucas.
That's never happening.
I'm not really like Buffy, like film Buffy in that manner. Yeah. I'm not good at picking people that would be good for it. I'm decent at picking people that wouldn't be good for it. When Phil Lord and Chris Miller got announced, I was that doesn't seem right at all, but you guys are the pros. You know what you're doing. I'm some goofball sitting in the auditorium in London at Celebration, and they seem like lovely chaps. I remember I did like one of their sweaters. It made me go out and buy a blue sweater. That I don't know why, but it's still comfortable. But so I'm not really that like when you like I then I connect to like that episode of Better Call Saul, much like Rian Johnson, when I worked out that he directed that episode of Breaking Bad that may have been called The Fly, but it was about a fly. Ironically, she directed the episode about them making the giant underground lab that then Rian Johnson directed an episode in the future. That's, man, you think the Star Wars timeline's confusing, but these prequels, but
it's all connected.
It is all connected. I guess I'm happy that Dave Filoni's doing it, partly because I don't have to read about people wanting it on Twitter anymore. So that's good.
You really are not a fan of Dave Filoni, but okay.
No. I that did come off a little bit snide, but it is one of those things that I just hear all like, Dave Filoni is like, and it's not his fault, but he's seen as this like savior if it needs saving of Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Like sort of like, running a corporation isn't, knowing a lot about Mortis. They're very different skills, you guys. So,
yeah.
But I actually think I might enjoy, and as I said, I did like a lot of Rebels and Clone Wars, but I think in that live action circumstance, like having to direct actual people because sometimes I found a lot of the action very unbelievable, as particularly in Rebels. There's this one episode, Peter, where Chopper gets in the back of an A-wing impossibly. Like I went through it.
Yeah.
Like frame by frame, and it's like there is no chance for him to get into that A-wing without Ezra finding out. But I think like in the real world, like I think he's going to go for, and also I kind of think animations be harder to direct than people. Do you know what I mean? Because people are there, like in front of you. Like to direct animation, you've got to have such a like internal like imagination and like idea about where everything's sort of lining up, and that's sort of why a lot of times, the prequels, the scenes seem a bit disjointed because there is so many things like pasted together. So
yeah,
it's but as an announcement goes, this is a good one. This is a good day for Star Wars fans, I think.
Oh, for sure. It's been a tough time recently, and like, you know, with all this news, U.S. politics going on, and you know, this is some good news to me, and it is kind of weird that we're getting our first, you know, photo of the Mandalorian. We see the character, but we don't even know who the actor is that is playing him. Nor do we know anybody who has been cast in this series. You know, there's rumors that Pedro Pascal from Game of Thrones and Narcos might be in it. Werner Herzog is another rumor. We don't know even who wrote this. Like, we know nothing about the show, and right now it's filming in Southern California somewhere. And that is crazy to me that they've kept it all under that kind of lock and key.
That is amazing. That they manage, like, we don't know the cast and they're filming. That's some good secrecy. But this is one of my favorite things about being a Star Wars fan. And, you know, one of my earliest memories of being a Star Wars fan revolves around this. And that's just like getting an image and having no idea what it is and just staring at it and thinking about what you think is happening, and then later on finding out. Like, I remember I had this Return of the Jedi like poster and trivia book, and I think it came out in maybe like 83 or 84. I was very young, and in the trivia they actually had the thing about the Blue Harvest cover name, which was like my first bit of sweet insider information, I guess, so I could, you know, gatekeep other people in grade prep that didn't know that fact. But on the cover there was a Gamorrean guard under the red sail of Jabba's sail barge, and I remember just thinking about why the sky was, I thought the whole sky was red, and I thought this guy was a big like boss monster or something. And I don't know, I love all this stuff. So I think it's you know, really cool. And you can't get any more mysterious than this, you know, helmeted dude. You know, Mandalorians are sort of always had an air of mystery about him. You know, like in the 90s, we spent the entire time just making up stories about, you know, where Boba Fett came from and who he was related to, and why Han Solo hated him so much. So
I should ask you this, because I asked Jason this yesterday. You know, we know that Boba Fett's armor has been found, you know, found outside of the Sarlacc pit, and there, you know, it's the possibility that he could have survived that death. Do you think in any way his story is going to collide with this new show in any way?
Oh man, I kinda.
What if Werner Herzog is Boba Fett?
I don't know. Where's what's his name at? Where's Tamira Morrison? Where's he filming? It's so cool just to think of like who could take off that helmet. Like, I'm looking at the picture now, and I'm sort of like going, could they wrap him up or wrap them up so much that you couldn't see their form? Like that front shield thing, like, could it be concealing a female breast or two? Like, that would be
shocking.
That would be.
Although I feel like they did that in Solo, and people did not like. People didn't seem to be a fan of that reveal in that film.
Really, man? Yeah. I think some. I don't. That those. And
I'm not speaking. I'm again not speaking about the problematic side of the Force. I'm just saying of the real fans. It seemed like I don't know. It was also the way it was handled. I think it was kind of played as like this big reveal, and it was kind of confusing. You're like, you know, is that Val's daughter? Is that? And you're trying to figure, like, it was kind of, I don't know. I think it was edited and filmed in a strange way, but we're getting off track again.
I think maybe because that was a Chris and Phil, like, all that stuff that was filmed on that beach, wherever that was in Morocco or something, that was all them. So I think they had to piece it together. But I actually find that like Enfy's Nest is like one of the most celebrated new characters. It's definitely, she's definitely building a lot of momentum. I
actually think she's cooler than Boba Fett, to be honest with you. Like that whole her costume, the bike, I don't know, everything is very, very cool. I want to like have like a collectible figure of her on my desk.
Yeah, I posted up a photo of her costume, like really close up of her mask, and people were going bananas over it. So, but it's I don't know. It's just I'm having trouble just conceiving this world where we're gonna like watch this once a week. It's
Are you deep into like all the books and the comic books, and do you like involve yourself in everything, or?
I try to as much as possible.
Because I said I was going to, and I only get my hands on about half of it. And if you had told me 20 years ago that there would be this whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that there'd be tons of connected Marvel TV shows on TV, and that I wouldn't be watching or care about them, I would be so shocked. But like, it just became too much. And maybe it's because like a lot of it isn't good. I think that's probably more of it than it just being too much. But there is so much of this expanded universe. It's hard to like read and consume everything.
Yeah. And I also think like committing yourself to doing it all, like don't make it a chore. And if something is sort of boring you don't like it, like don't feel like you're compelled as a fan to complete it. Like, do you know what I mean? You don't have to complete every little challenge in the Lucasfilm publishing world. So, like the comics, I was like amped when the comics started, the new ones, and it was a bit too comic booky and not enough Star Warsy for me, so I sort of drifted off. But I've actually heard a lot of buzz about like the current ones and have gone back and picked up some of the Vader and Star Wars ones that are just releasing now, and man,
they're very good.
They've picked up their game big time. So I think it's like when someone has actually read everything and it's not their job, I look at them quizzically and envy their time management.
Well, I hear the baby crying in the background, so I'm not going to keep you any longer. I know we were going to do this in 15 minutes, and it went into 45 because, when you nerd out about Star Wars, it just happens.
That's not my son. That's I've got the audio turned on Twitter.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah, it's just people crying.
Oh. I thought at first you were saying you had like a stream from the other room of your. That's funny. Okay. Anyways, where can people find more of your work online?
The podcast is Steele Wars. We cover the news, and we also do in-depth interviews with people of Star Wars note, whether they're actors or creatives in Star Wars or fans of note. And if you are looking for a podcast or on YouTube, in the next 24 hours, I've got a little interview going up with Ray Park, which is super cool. We talk about Solo, we talk about the Phantom Menace and what new moves that Darth Maul may have if he makes a return. That's something he's been thinking about. So he's like, I'm in love with that dude. He's just the sweetest, really kind, excited dude about Star Wars. So I'm so glad to have him back. So yeah, that'll be up on YouTube at Steele Wars, on podcast at Steele Wars, and on Twitter at Steele Wars. There's a theme there. It's called branding. I should have just said it's everything Steele Wars.
Steele Wars.
I've just said the name of my podcast far more times than you said the word Sundance. So revenge is mine, Peter.
Okay, well, you can, if you're listening to this podcast, go and head to /film, check out that photo, read the whole article on the site. This podcast, /film Daily, is usually published 5 days a week, every weekday on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. You can send us feedback, questions, comments, concerns to peter@slashfilm.com. And as always, go to iTunes, go to our page, give us a glowing 5-star review, tell your friends, spread the word, and we will see you tomorrow.